Please be seated. This is but the beginning of the birth pangs, was the final line in the gospel. The Sikh-American lawyer Valerie Kaur uses this idea, as does the novelist Arundhati Roy, that at times, as described in the gospel reading for today, times like ours, times like all times, can be understood as a devastation, or like birth, the difficult passing into new life of what had been part of another whole, a tearing apart, something new and unknown about to emerge. Arundhati Roy says it this way: at what feels like the end, another world is not only possible, she is coming. On a quiet day, we can hear her breathing. Valerie Kaur says it is like preparing to give birth, the control of the breath, the power of the breath, the preparation to absorb pain, and waiting. In the calendar of the church, we celebrate Christ the King next Sunday, many of us at Canuga, and then we step into Advent, the beginning of the next cycle of our calendar year. The cycle of our liturgy and our readings start again, and we start year C, which is Luke, which is good for us. Today's readings are how we begin to end. The darkness of the days are longer this time of year in this part of the planet, and for some, the heaviness of life, its sufferings and wear, hang longer with us in these kinds of days. The readings are for exactly these kinds of times. We are preparing for anticipation. Hannah, who we read about in the first reading, is beloved of her husband Elkanah. Elkanah seems like a good guy. He is biblically married. He has at least 2 wives, we read, lots of children, but none by Hannah, and he loves Hannah. Excuse me. But Hannah has no children, and she really wants one. She seems in particular to want a son. She wants a future. Maybe her body wants it. Definitely there's some rivalry with another wife, but it doesn't tell us what drives her. She wants a son, even though her husband is happy with the way things are. She sees a different future for herself, life she is living. Hannah begs God for more than this life. Like Jesus and those disciples who he tells will see the great monuments of their times fall in their lifetime. And they do. Jerusalem will be destroyed. The temple is destroyed, remains destroyed to this day. Unimaginable in Jesus' time that would be so. So the readings offer us some ways to reflect on time and on our perspective. And I invite you to imagine yourself in that way, our world in that way. What is crumbling? What is being born? What breath are you listening for? What invites you to the future? When I was a new priest, I went to a meeting of hotel workers in West Los Angeles, where our parish was. Our parish was in Westwood, and our parish was Bel Air, Brentwood, and Westwood, so one city over, Venice or Santa Monica, from the beach. And in Santa Monica, there are gorgeous hotels right on the beach that you will pay well for, and there are people that make your room clean while you're not there, magically, and those people were on strike, hotel workers in Santa Monica, and they were fighting for an increase in their wages. Excuse me. Religious leaders were asked to come with holiday food, turkeys and all the stuff that goes with that, because these workers were on strike, they had no income, they would not be having this holiday. So we collected food at St. Albans, and I took it all in brown shopping bags with handles, and put it in my car and took it to the meeting place to donate. And I remember this community every time at this year, because this was the first year that I was a priest, so I remember it very well. I remember thinking, what could I possibly say, and how would I do it in Spanish that would be of any help to these brave people who might both lose their jobs and be deported for standing up for themselves? They were the year 2000 version of people who got here we don't know how and did jobs no one else would do. No one would get paid that little to do anything. These people, overwhelmingly older women, cleaned your very expensive hotel room while you were out, and they were risking everything to make a little bit more money, to afford to buy food and pay rent, and basically survive and to feed their own children. It felt so inadequate to me to just have a carload of food from St. Albans for them, but that's what I had. So that's what I took, that and my prayer book and the little card I had printed out writing my prayer in Spanish so that I could say it correctly in a way they could understand. Well, it turns out I didn't have to worry about any of that because a rabbi, who Peter Berg reminds me a lot of, a long-time West LA rabbi, was first up, and he told the most captivating story. He reminded us of who we were together. And he told his story in English with a translator. He reminded us that Hanukkah was around the corner. And the story of Hanukkah was that the people have returned to their destroyed temple, they're back and they're victorious, and they go to light the great lamps, but they find no oil. A child comes forward with just a little vial of oil to offer, and the adults ignore him at first because it is not nearly enough for one lamp, much less all of them, in the many days that the lamps should be lit. The child had an ancestor, the rabbi said. Now, just to be real clear, in case you're about to tell this to your Jewish friends, no other rabbi I have ever asked about this has heard this story. But I promise, I heard it from a rabbi, and there were witnesses. He said Noctune was the child's ancestor who was at the crossing of the Red Sea. Now, that was a plot twist I did not see coming. Midrash is a beautiful thing. We just had a little bit of that study here at this church yesterday. It is the telling of the story between the words, in the white space, in the unprinted text, like a tall tale told from a rocking chair on a porch. It is the filling out in the illustration. So in this Midrash, Noctune is with the crowds as they make their way briskly to the Red Sea. They have been liberated from the enslavers in Egypt. They are free, whatever that means. They get to the water, they stop, and they look at Moses for instructions. Left or right? What's next? Moses looks up. Moses looks around. Moses listens for God. And nothing. No burning bush, no pillar of fire, no cloud in the sky. So the people wait for Moses, and Moses waits to hear from God. And nothing. And now there is dust back there on the horizon, the armies of Pharaoh far away coming towards them, and still nothing. The people, so many. What shall the people do? The sea is roiling in front of them, vast and alive. Noctune steps into the water, just a few steps, and slowly, going in the only way he could go, forward, slowly, the rabbi said, until he got up to his knee, and then his hip, and then chest height. Some of the people are watching now, probably his family for sure. The armies of Pharaoh are a thundering sound that you can start to hear now. The dust is rising and coming towards them. And Noctune keeps walking, the water up to his chin, and now his nose, and the seas part, and the people cross on dry land. The rabbi stopped his story, the translator finished, and we sat in silence. The rabbi continued, it was his descendant, that small boy, who offered the little vial of oil, not nearly enough to light the lamps, but they used the oil, and like Elisha's oil, it just kept pouring and pouring, enough to light all of the lamps for all of the nights. Friends, there is plenty of light, plenty of courage, plenty of breath and hope and trust among us to defy every power of evil and isolation and hate. There is more than enough truth and character and neighborliness among us to wade into oceans of uncertainty and confusion about what the future holds. There is plenty of good music and poetry and tall tales to equip our Christian imaginations to seek freedom and dignity for each other and for everyone. And plenty of love among us to overcome anything that seeks to divide us. This is what church can choose to be, taking your today and facing the future with you. A future that is about your deepest desires and hopes for yourself, for your community, for this nation, for your people. A place where people love your children and see their future in them. We get to love other people's children because all children are our children and deserve care, and their families deserve dignity. We get to listen to one another across the wide variety of life experiences that bring us here. We get to tell one another our stories, just as we are, all of us. And we get to read these old stories to make for ourselves all of the facets of a Christian way of being in this time, lives filled with the pursuit of justice and mercy and beauty, courageous living to meet the needs of the times. And these are complex times. And friends, the Bible tells us they almost always are for someone. So we stand together, shoulder to shoulder, the foundation stones magnificent and massive, and they seemed permanent, didn't they? And the seas are mighty and deep. But we take the next step together, all of us, all in.